Welcome to the Designing Hollywood podcast in association with the John Campea Show. I am your host, Robert Meyer Burnett. The Designing Hollywood podcast show is dedicated to all things movies, the movie industry, and its talented professionals. From directors, producers, writers, cinematographers, and of course, costume designers. Designing Hollywood covers some of the most celebrated professionals in the motion picture industry. The show explores the artistry, the craftsmanship, and the stories that bring our favorite motion pictures to life.
Hi, I'm Gilbert Musali, the new president and CEO of Western Costume, welcoming Designing Hollywood back to Western. This is our men's tailor shop, where we're custom making clothes all the time, alterations. This is our women's custom made. We can make anything you guys need us to make, alter anything. We can deck out a full army if you want in our military department. Thank you, Designing Hollywood, for coming in to see Western Costume. Hope to see you soon.
The Designing Hollywood show is proud to welcome Virginia Johnson, Virginia B. Johnson, an acclaimed Filipina-American costume designer whose work is defined by rich, character-driven storytelling. Most recently, she wrapped production on The Parenting, directed by Craig Johnson and starring Parker Posey, Brian Cox, Lisa Kudrow, and Edie Falco for New Line Cinema and HBO Max. Earlier this year, she designed the critically acclaimed Netflix limited series American Primeval, set in 1850s Utah, which explores the lives of settlers, Native Americans, and Latter-day Saints struggling to survive in the rugged frontier. If I might editorialize here, it was awesome and brutal, and you should all watch it. Johnson made her first mark as a costume supervisor on acclaimed films such as The Social Network, Spotlight, Black Mass, and Joy. Her early design credits began with the historical docudramas and series for PBS, including The War That Made America, Nova, and The American Experience, where she honed her eye for authenticity and period detail. Her work on Boston-based independent films soon caught the attention of director Peter Berg, who tapped her for Patriots Day, the retelling of the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing. That collaboration grew into an ongoing creative partnership, continuing with Mile 22, Spencer Confidential, and ultimately American Primeval, where she served as a costume designer across all 6 episodes, and it earned her a Primetime Emmy nomination for Outstanding Period Costumes for Episode 2 this year. Without further ado, it is our great pleasure to welcome costume designer Virginia B. Johnson to the Designing Hollywood show. Virginia, great to have you.
I'm so happy to be here and so excited to be in conversation with you today. Big fan, listen to the show while doing these long commutes to and from the offices. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, are you kidding? It's our honor. And I think what's amazing is, to me, I think the people that watch this show the most are fellow costume designers. I feel like it's so weird that like I have a small but very fervent fan base amongst because I've talked to like the best of the best. You're joining a rarefied group of people that are way more talented than I could ever hope to be. But
I mean, there are some great interviews, and we don't get to work with one another.
Right.
So this is like the only real chance that we hear honest, behind the scene, very like fulfilling conversations where people really get to talk about process, and we get to learn from each other. It is really rare and special. So thank you.
Well, I'm a huge fan. You know, before I did this, I did DVD special features, Blu-ray special features for 20 years. So I would get embedded with productions to the point where I'm wandering around filming. People got so used to me, and I always thought that costume designer, it was hair and makeup and costume design. They should also be giving you guys money for being therapists, because you know, if you want to find out what the tenor of the set's going to be for the day, go to the hair and makeup department and go to the costume department and see how everybody's doing.
Truer words have never been spoken.
But I've got to ask. I ask everybody: how did you grow up wanting to get into costume design? Everybody's kind of got a different. Some people started designing clothes for their dolls. Some people went into theater and figured that that's where they really wanted costume design, or they really liked that, or they came in from a totally different angle. How did you find yourself as a designer?
It was truly an accident in many ways.
Wow.
I am, born, raised in this very rich Filipina-American community. I grew up in Long Beach, California. Like the only ideas I had about costumes were the traditional costumes I wore in Filipina dance. I did like
Wow.
folk dance, and I did it all up until like high school. And aunties would help us make our costumes or make them, and we were not in a financial place where we would go to the theater. Like the kind of theater we saw, live performance we saw was community theater. So it was not something that I thought of as a career. So I actually went to college as a bio pre-med major. Like going
Wow.
to college was like a non like question. Like my parents had worked so hard, made so many sacrifices, and they were like, "You all will go to college, and you will all get a job." And so, like to do anything other than that, my mom is a nurse. And like I was like, "What's the next step up from a nurse?" Clearly, it's a doctor, so that's what I'm going to do. Um, but I also was a work study student, and that helped me go to college. And on the work study like skills to list, I listed sewing, machine sewing, because my grandmother had taught me how, and I had just been sewing since I was 6 years old. It was
Wow.
just something
Okay.
I loved to do.
That's
I
interesting.
helped her do, yeah, I helped her do mending. Um, it was the late 80s. I was, altering prom dresses, homecoming dresses, just doing that kind of thing on the side. And so the costume shop manager slash costume designer at Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa, offered me a job. And I think I made like $7 an hour. And I was only allowed to work 10 hours a week. But it was like, I realized, oh my God, I can get paid to sew. And I didn't even know what we were so like I was so like unfamiliar with the world that I was just like, oh, you want me to hem pants? Sure. You want me to make a ruffle? Sure. But it lit something in me. And I
Mm.
eventually would like end up taking costume design and costume technology. And I ended up graduating with a degree in English, studying under the late Shakespearean scholar Barbara Hodgson, because I fell in love with theater and that
Wow. Okay.
version of storytelling, and suddenly had all of these opportunities to find out how to be a storyteller through costumes.
How'd that
I,
go over with mom and dad?
at the end of the day, they were like, if you are going to figure out how to support yourself, carry on. You got to,
All right.
you got to just do what you need to do. Which was like kind of surprising because I was terrified, like to be like, okay, so I just want you to know I'm still going to have that minor in chemistry, but I am not going to major in biology as first intended. And I had a great advisor in the biology department, Dr. Mashevsky, and he was like, in the end of the day, even if you don't end up going into the theater, doctors who embrace human stories are excellent doctors. So he was like really great about it. So everybody at the university totally understood that I hadn't had the opportunity to explore what I wanted to do.
Right.
Really, I had just been on a path, and I wanted to step off the path for a beat and see what happened.
Well, that's pretty rad. That's a interesting. So I haven't heard that one before. That's a good one.
Thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
so how did you make the transition? Because what I find really interesting in the beginning of your career, when you were in the costume department, you worked for a bunch of great projects with great directors. How did you finally find yourself on set on these incredible movies that you worked on?
Again, when I decided I wanted to just give it a try, you know, I got a barn, let's put on a show, that whole like approach. I went to summer stock theater and I took any job I could. And so I did a bunch of summer stock in the Midwest. Timberlake
Wow.
Playhouse in Illinois, Weathervane Playhouse in Ohio. But I eventually ended up at Williamstown Theater Festival, which is this incredible, experimental, wonderful place where they're nurturing old works, new works, people just trying different things. And it helped me like meet people who were doing not just theater, but also film and television. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, that's another avenue. But I actually was just really in love with like designing opera. So I would go on to design opera in Boston. But a producer saw a production of Candide I designed and reached out to the artistic director and asked who did it because they were looking for someone to do a PBS special that just happened to be period. And if I could pull off Candide, I'm sure I can pull off a PBS special. And that's how it all started. It really was like someone went to the theater, they were moved by what they experienced, and that opened up the door. And this was definitely just like going from small show to small show, putting in the work, learning as I went. But my first costume supervising job was for John Dunn on The Women, and they were looking for a Boston-based costume supervisor, which is actually where I'm based. And I pitched my experience in the theater as the asset to him. Like when you're in the theater, you learn to manage a budget, manage a team, understand fitting protocols, and just be super organized. And that's how I got my first like real big job, was just using all the things that I carried with me from doing theater. And because John had also done theater, he understood what value I would bring to this independent film.
Okay, and I gotta ask, the cast on that movie is insane. And
Yeah.
I just want to go. So you're working on your first movie. You've got Debbie Mazur, Cloris Leachman, Carrie Fisher, Candice Bergen, Bette Midler, Jada Pinkett Smith, Deborah Messing, Eva Mendes, Annette Bening, and Meg Ryan.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a murderer's row of great actresses representing, you know, the latter half of the 20th century and the 21st century. When you found yourself on a set like that, were you starstruck?
You know, this is also, and people talk about this a lot with me, is that I really, because I think I came to the whole industry late and this idea a little bit later, that the only people I am starstruck by are politicians. So like I was like, people who have power to really change if I have health care. Like
That's
met
fantastic.
Barack Obama and I was like weeping, you know, like I have a picture of myself with Senator Ed Markey, and I'm looking at him like, you could save the planet. Whereas like
Wow.
I'm on a set with like all of these fantastically talented, amazing women, and I'm like, we're just working women getting the job done.
Now okay. First of all, what a refreshing attitude, and that's amazing. But I gotta ask, like, with all of those women on set, obviously, and that's a large ensemble cast of great actresses. I mean, I was watching Cloris Leachman on TV like in the '70s. She was amazing, and to have everybody like that when you're dealing with all those personalities, you know, and obviously, I think costume design, especially for women, is key. How did you begin? I mean, I know that you were assisting at the time. You were assisting a costume designer, but still, that's a big job. Was the amount of work on a job like that intimidating? And how did you guys begin? How did you begin to collaborate with your designer?
So John really had a great vision for the film, and you know, had so many like very clear directions. And as the supervisor, I just needed to make sure all the parts and pieces arrived and were there, and I could go into the fitting room and answer the questions, make sure the rooms were set and that no one was having any issues with their costume, that the alterations got done. And, you know, sometimes we didn't get people right away. That's pretty normal. So then it would be like, here is just racks and racks of beautiful clothing. I'm sure there's something here that's going to work, you know? And that was kind of amazing too, because I have to say the thing that was intimidating was the only way we were able to do that show was through connections and loans. And one day, because there's a fashion show in the women, because Meg Ryan's character creates a whole line. And so we were loaned like something like 50 pairs of Manolo Blahniks, and they arrived and we had them all on the floor inventorying them so we could send them back. And I was like, I've never been surrounded by this many pairs of Manolo Blahniks, and I never will be again. And then Mikimoto pearls would come in, and I was like, this is worth my lifetime savings. You know, like I was just like, I've never seen such beautiful, we had like these beautiful Birkin bags that we kept in a safe. There were just so many beautiful things that
Wow.
I've never had those beautiful things ever since.
Did those Manolo Blahniks walk off the set? Were they still around at the end of the
Oh
shooting?
no. What keeps you employed is making sure everything goes back as you found it. So yeah, we sent everything back beautifully, wrapped the show beautifully, made sure Chanel everybody got everything they loaned us back. Which was like the foundation for really great references on the way to building a career.
Yeah, I mean, you had some great. As a nerd myself, I have to say movies like The Box. We talked about Richard Kelly, Jonathan Mostow's Surrogates, which is based on a comic book starring Bruce Willis. One of the things I'm most fascinated by is you worked on The Social Network.
Yeah.
And I think that I maintain that The Social Network is one of the most rewatchable films ever made. I've probably seen that movie 100 times. And so when you were on that set, I got to ask, what was it like working under David Fincher and how many takes he did? Like, is he as detail-minded about the costumes as he is about the whole, the cinematography and the movement?
Jacqueline West and David have a wonderful rapport. She really does her homework, and she really puts in front of him what he needs to see to make clear decisions, and has built like a trusting, symbiotic relationship, so that once we got to set, everything already on the bodies was totally approved and ready to go. And so we would get there, get it going, and then we would just disappear. Like we were just like, our job is done, except you're like hiding in the shadows, just waiting for someone to need you. But so that was like really fascinating. And it was also fascinating because, you know, it happens to be in like this like era that was like soft period. Like, you remember the launch of Facebook, having like being in Boston and being part of this college community.
Right.
Like, I remember when my Tufts students were invited to Facebook, and they're like, "Oh, you got to get on this." And I was like, "I don't think it's for me." They're like, "No, we'll invite you." And so I just remember being one in the, one of the first 5 schools to get on Facebook. So it was just like a weird, like, I was like, oh, I have a memory of this, and here we are doing it. And like living down the street from the Thirsty Scholar, and then shooting at the Thirsty Scholar, going to the head of the Charles, just as a, Cantabrigian, and then shooting the head of the Charles. And like, that is like a really interesting way to like re-experience your own memory, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that had to have been fun. I mean, that film, it's very funny. That movie cracks me up because the ad line, the poster, said, "You don't get to 500,000 friends without making a few enemies." And of course, cut to where we are now, and it's like billions of friends. So they did well for themselves.
Yes.
Facebook, but then you had a
Yeah.
great run of movies like Spotlight and Black Mass and Joy and The Finest Hours, Ghostbusters, and a movie that does not get enough love, Ben Affleck's Live by Night, which
Yeah.
was the
Yeah.
fourth film he directed. That's an incredible movie, and what a beautiful period piece. The clothing in that film is really, incredible. And then you worked on the New Mutants,
Yeah.
the end of the Fox Marvel era before you
Yep.
became even a full-fledged costume designer. And I wanted to ask, what was that transition like? What was it like for you to go from assisting a designer to taking the helm and leading the charge, and you became a full-fledged costume designer? How was that transition for you?
Um, I think that when you listed out those shows, I think one of the reasons those shows are on my resume is that I was a really good, not to toot my own horn, but I was a really good costume supervisor.
No, you can toot your own horn. This
Yeah.
is your episode, by
Yeah.
God.
I was a really solid costume supervisor because of, once again, that theater training, and working under April Ferry, who, designed the box and surrogates. And she took me under her wing. And when she started out, you were a supervisor and a designer. You were doing it all. You had to, manage your budget, manage the shop, go to set,
Yeah.
dress the actors. It was just a different time, especially on a contemporary show back then. And she made me want to be the very best, and whatever that meant, the very best for the way April worked. And that then translated to wanting to be not to being one of the designer's hands. If the designer had an ACD, then I would be their left hand. If they didn't, I would be anything they needed me to be to make their vision of the show a reality. And like doing something like Black Mass with Kasha Walika Mamone was one of the biggest shows I ever supervised. A huge cast set over a span of time, with big builds because of all of the violence. And I, gave it my all, for Kasha, wanting that to be an incredible looking show. And it really is. And when Kasha was asked to design Patriots Day, she was already booked on something else. So she put my name forward. And then she called me and said, I've put your name forward for this show because you have a lot of experience with research and presenting the research in a way that also forwards the character. And it's what you want to do, especially on those bigger shows. I always did the day player fittings, and I would oversee the background fittings and make sure, like on Joy, I handled all the background fittings for Michael, and like just helping like create the wedding, and just understanding that all of those players help support the ultimate picture.
Right.
So without Kasha believing in me and pushing me, I probably would still be a costume supervisor. And it was her that said, you're ready. This is what you want. And I think you'll do a great job.
What were some of the lessons that April Ferry and Kasha imparted to you that you carried with you when you became a full-fledged costume designer? What were some of the things that, you take away from them that you think was vital to your career?
My research process, for sure, and how that research is presented. Kasha on Black Mass had us print thousands of images from the eras, and the specific people, and crime scene photos. And when you walked into the costume shop, you, on both sides of the halls, you would just see just in chronological order, all of Whitey's life, and how Boston and Miami and Santa Monica, how it all felt. And you were immediately in Black Mass. You understood what we were doing. We had fabric swatches. You just really understood the world. And I still do that to this day. And people, our crew members that haven't worked with a designer like that will talk about how, on other films, I've never walked into the shop and just been immersed in the world.
I can only imagine that helps every department head too,
Yeah.
from especially production design, cinematography. Anybody would walk in and be able to get a sense of having that kind of thing is, I think, invaluable.
Yeah, and I like the project I'm doing right now, same thing. We did like our first week was really about let's get the hallway to our department completely plastered and what this world looks like. And then my assistant created a timeline for the, the season so that from episode 1 to episode 8, and everyone stops and reads it so that we know what the beats are so that we can effectively design for that. So we see the high points, the low points throughout the season. And I learned that from April, like really going through and creating our own timeline, not waiting for someone else to hand it to us,
Sure.
but have developed our own ideas about the passage in time and what's happened to what people are wearing and what they're wearing and who they are, how the character arc changes, and visualizing that, I think, has been invaluable to me. And the other thing was printing the photos. Like even in the time of digital, I print the photos to this day, print all those fitting photos. And then I can see them all and I move them around. And then as I get more actors in, I start to piece those together. And they all did that.
I would imagine does that help the actors? Do you show are they on the wall so actors can see? I would imagine that kind of prep. I mean, obviously, the more preparation you have when you're working in a feature film environment helps everybody.
Right.
And I think there's something. Yeah, you can get an email,
Right.
but I don't think it's nearly as effective as walking into a room and standing in front of not just one photo, flipping through them on some presentation, but being able to look at, like you said, be immersive in that world. I can only imagine how helpful that is for everybody. Does that mean more people from the crew come and visit your department?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's so great too, because the other thing is you can be a lonely island if you want to be.
Sure.
But I don't. I want to hear what, the scenics are thinking the show looks like, and then seeing them bring other guys down and they're all looking at stuff and going like, oh yeah, that's what an ash like storm looks like.
Sure. I would imagine even if the guys from the grip and light department come down, they're looking at, oh, you're going to have these fabrics, so we got to bring in these kinds of lights or scrims or whatever we're going to use. That's got to be invaluable. So then you go to work on Patriots Day, which is the first time you work with Peter Berg. And you began a collaboration with him, I guess, because Boston, and what better way to make a movie with a Boston film with Mark Wahlberg?
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
if you're not working with Ben Affleck, you got to be working with Mark Wahlberg.
Yep.
So what was that like? Again, another great cast: Michelle Monaghan, J.K. Simmons, Mark Wahlberg. So what was it like? Your first experience working with Peter Berg, and when you met him, and how did that relationship develop, and what's it like working with him?
Well, one of the things Pete said when we wrapped was, when the producers had reached out and said, we'd like you to interview for this job, if you would like to write a letter, like an email of introduction that we can share with Pete, he knows that Kosh has recommended you. So I write this email, and in the email, I talk about how I was here in 2013. I live here.
Oh, wow.
And I was crossing the Charles River when the first explosion happened, because we wanted to catch our mailman finishing. And we had been told it'll be around this time. And if, like, I've already finished, you can meet me at a bar. So when it happened, I remember just being like, whoa, did they start lighting fireworks? It's not, you just don't think it's what
Right.
it is, And then I got a text from my sister who lives in Iowa City that said, I hope you're not downtown. And then cell service went out. Like there was no way to contact anybody. Like it was like, I was like, what do you mean I'm not? And then we saw all of the fire trucks and first responders coming from Cambridge crossing into Boston. And it happened so quickly. So I wrote him an email about like, this was my experience. This was my community's experience. The lockdown, the kids, like having houses searched in Watertown, one of my good friends. Yeah, all of that, and why, like being able to talk about the resilience of a city and how people don't run away, they run towards. And that's what it means to be human, even in a place that everyone makes fun of. Like I'm not from here and I've chosen to live here. And it took me a while to get used to the cold, and sometimes I don't really understand what people are saying because of the accents, but all of that, there's something incredibly strong about the city, and there's a reason so much good came from something terrible. And so Pete said, no, that people should keep in mind that what you write matters, because it was that email that made him think, okay, she doesn't have any big design credits, but we'll meet with her. And
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's interesting. So but there must have been something you'd done in your past that impressed him enough to hire you.
He realized that I designed the indie sports film Cricket Arrows, which had been one of his kids' favorite movie.
See, you just never know how you're going to get a job in this business.
So, I made this lacrosse movie. It happened to be like something he had seen. But also like the work I'd done for PBS, and I came in for my meeting with research, some ideas and thoughts. And at the end of our meeting, Pete just said, don't fuck it up. And I said, okay, I won't. And that's how it started.
That's I love that. Now I guess it's time. I love talking. You're great. American Primeval. I have to say that I did not know anything about it. I first heard, I didn't know what it was about. And my girlfriend was watching it, the first episode, and I came in and I'm like, what is this? Like, I love Westerns, and but you could immediately tell that show is ferocious. Yeah. And it is a limited series. Peter Berg directed every episode. You have an incredible ensemble cast.
Yeah.
Obviously it's I mean, who knew this about Mormons? I did not know. And when you started on this project, I mean, obviously how much research was involved, and because there had to have been a lot, it wasn't just your typical Western. And where did you begin? How did you begin the process on American Primeval? Take us through that. Once you were hired, what happened next?
So I got hired in, I guess it would have been October of 2022, because we filmed in 2023. And because I love digging deep into textile history, and have some resources being in the greater Boston area, museums and great libraries, and textile conservators. I started there. I was like, what did people wear? What was it made from? All fabric, for the everyday person was woven and milled up here in New England at that time. So, and the woolen mills, same thing, all in the Northeast. And then clothes, we already had some ready to wear clothes, sort of, and that was being either put on trains or steamships, steamboats, heading west, because there was like a new market for these things.
Sure.
So it started in, I guess, what I would consider the easy part. Like, what did regular everyday people wear? And going to artists, reading journals, because I find that people want to just look at a photograph or they want to just look at a painting. And especially at this like weird moment where we've just started to have daguerreotypes, the working people, you know, are not the fashion plates. They're not going to be in a magazine. They're not highlighted in a newspaper. So we have to read about what they're wearing. And sometimes you read that in historical accounts of the moment, in the journals of the people who were settling the West, and as well as, you know, authors painting a picture of the West. And through reading, you get the context clues of like what people wore, how long they may have worn it, when was the last time they took a bath. All of that information is there in the written word. And I guess that's why I was an English major. So I like, you can read through and pull out the information that is relevant to what we were doing. I then, you know, started again going back to the museum, like the Smithsonian's Native American collection, and seeing what was still available and relevant to the Shoshone, the Paiute, and the Ute communities that we would be representing. Because one of the reasons I was drawn to this project is there are entire communities of people that we've never seen on film, that we have never, you know, depicted. We've done like natives in a really generic way, and none of that stuff exists. So we were going to build it. So then I really
how exciting was that for you? Were you totally stoked about that?
I'm so excited about that, because as somebody who rarely sees people that like are from my community on film, you know, I just knew that this was an opportunity to showcase what America really looks like, all of us. You know, it's just like a tiny little bite of it, but it's like just opens the door. And the number of people who've watched the series, I mean, to me, says there's a hunger to see what our country looked like and how it transforms. So I begged and begged and begged to bring on a historical consultant just for Native dress.
Wow.
And Native.
How did that go over with the producers?
It was great. Anyway, I because I knew Jackie, and Jackie had, you know, just done Killers of the Flower Moon. The person that she had worked with was Julie O'Keefe. And so I got Julie's information and reached out to Julie. And I was like, I don't know what this will lead to, but I am going to fight for you to at least consult on my part of this show.
Right.
Because I don't want to drop the ball. I am in a position where I could do it right. And then I actually lived with the production designer. We were able to rent a really nice house together, but it was so big, we didn't have to see each other. But we were, so once again, totally immersed in the world with one another, talking about how we could like collaborate together to really support each other's vision so that we had a cohesive vision. So when Renee found out, Renee was like, well, I want Julie too.
Renee Reed, the production designer.
Yeah. So Renee Reed.
Did you pronounce the last name Reed? Is it Reed?
Yeah, it's Reed. Yeah.
Okay.
So we went in together and we were like, we really want this person. And this is the best person. And these are their references. And they've worked in the museum world and the entertainment world. So she was brought on for like 2 weeks first. And we were like, and then 2 more weeks. And then everybody was like, oh, this is actually a really invaluable human being who like knows elders from a variety of communities and can like get us in touch with like language specialists. So suddenly Julie's like on the show for the whole time, which is such a gift to the show because she added the nuance that I think is what makes it so powerful. But yeah, so once again, she would like have us do like a Zoom meeting with an elder from the Eastern Shoshone, and they would share the oral history of what they wore and describe
Wow.
and talk about the craftsmanship and the materials that were used, because things that are used over and over again aren't going to be in a museum, right?
Right.
So
No.
so through that we
You
were
must
able
have
to.
loved that.
I loved it. I loved all of it. I really did. And then like knowing that like Curtis Barney, who is from the Eastern Shoshone tribe and is an elder, he literally owned a craft store and led young Shoshones in the community in making their traditional crafts. So he actually made pieces that Red Feather wore. And so we like continue this legacy of that craftsmanship, and it's on screen, and that's forever. Like whenever people are like, oh, I can't believe you left the theater, and I was like, when I do something like this, it is forever. And
And the amount of people that, I mean, no
yeah,
knock on the theater. We all love theater, but the amount of people that are going to watch a streaming series
yeah,
internationally, I mean,
right,
you're now talking to the whole planet.
yep, yeah, yeah. What I mean, just for me, what an amazing gift to like one have those connections with people. Once again, I would not have gotten to connect without Julie as the conduit, and having a bit of time to really dig deep, and do samples and testing and make sure that what we were doing and using could stand up to all of the ac- action and violence. But like the thing that was kind of entertaining was that we think that you need all of this like man-made fabric and padding and all this stuff, and elk and deer hide is indestructible. Like you're like, there's a reason that was like the chosen material. And same with like a heavy double wool. Like the cavalry, I felt bad. They were so hot, but
Right.
but yeah, that is indestructible material. So
When you, I mean, having that, the relationship you had with your production designer, what was it like? I mean, with the two of you guys working in tandem, what was it then like working with the cinematographer and Peter? Was there more of a synergistic relationship on this project than you'd had before because of the close quarters, but also how the period would kind of define how you're going to shoot things, because you don't have a bunch of electric lights. It's not like you're on city streets and things like that, and how things would read on camera. What was that collaboration like with all of you working in tandem?
so I'd actually worked with Jacques in the past, on other Peter shows.
Jacques Jouffre,
Okay, yes, thank you. The DP, Jacques Jouffre, also nominated. And so he was also just very interested in the textures of the world, and took the time to go, and look at everything and really
yeah,
know what we were going to be using. So having this is so key. Like every show, you're trying to develop the vocabulary. We have to have a shared vocabulary on what something looks like. And if we're not all speaking the same language, that's when there are problems where you bring something to set, you put on the actor, they shoot it, and it doesn't look the way you thought it was going to look. Or you put it on set and you're like, oh my God, she's wearing the same color as the wallpaper.
Right,
This isn't supposed to be funny, right?
right, yeah, no, but that's,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
people, I think for our viewers out there, that is key. Like sometimes without that collaboration, you don't understand, like, oh, the production designer, like one piece of wallpaper can mess up a shot and then cause delays, and unless people are mindful of that, and that's why having a costume department like yours that's easily accessible to Grip and Electric,
Yep.
our production design is really, really key, and it's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the fact that we were all very transparent about what we were doing, and we were all really, again, accessible. Like I always go to set to establish costumes. I want to be there and present. I want to be there for the hair and makeup team. I want to be there at the first shot for rehearsal just to make sure we don't need to tweak something.
Sure.
And that I'm there to support the set costumers who sometimes haven't even seen the costume yet. This is the first time they're seeing it, and we have to work with them to make sure it's worn correctly and that we can adapt to whatever the environment is or the action is. And I think that really helps and establishes a good working relationship across departments.
Right. On this show, a lot of people die. There's a lot of mayhem. Did you have lots of multiples? I mean, did you have as many as you needed? It's like, I can't imagine, your poor costumes. It's not like they came out unscathed.
We made so many multiples, and that was something that, Pete really believes that things look best when they happen for real.
Right.
So if someone's going to get stabbed, we're going to cut a hole in the costume. If someone's going to have some sort of like gunshot wound, we're going to see blood, and it's going to soak through the clothes. And there's no world where you say, we can't get blood on this.
Right. Of course.
And we knew it reading it. I watched The Revenant. I totally knew what we were getting into.
Your screenwriter, screenwriter also wrote The Revenant. We should say that.
Yes.
So, if this already wasn't a cool enough, with the cast and crew, the writer Mark Smith wrote The Revenant.
Yep.
So that little movie.
Yeah, that small thing that was like not dark at all. So we did build so many things, and there were so many stunts and stunt doubles.
Right.
Yeah. And because of all the animals, we also had a ton of animal wranglers, and they were all costumed. So there were just a lot of clothes made for this show. And we ended up with like 2 trucks, and that still wasn't enough because the poor costumers that just took we went to Fort Bridger, and after we were done with Fort Bridger, they took that truck and they took all of Fort Bridger off, and they put on all the cavalry because we're going to go do the cavalry camp. And it was just like so like physically demanding in ways that I don't think anyone was truly prepared for, but everyone was such a good sport about it and did their best. And our team in the leather department, the actual like menswear, women's wear, all of that. We just had some of the very best craftspeople in the world making this happen. And they all really believed in it, which I feel really lucky to have people so committed to what we were doing.
Well, the proof's in the pudding. That show was wildly entertaining. It was, and I think very, very successful and very hardcore. It really felt. Peter Berg. I don't know if you've ever seen this. He was in a little underseen time travel movie as an actor called Late for Dinner. And no one's ever heard of it. I'm always trying to tell people, you got to. This is one of the reasons I like when Peter Berg transitioned to directing. He had such an interesting presence as an actor. He kind of played this simple brother, and these guys inadvertently travel through time. Hence the title Late for Dinner. They were very late for dinner, and I love seeing him transition because in his work, whether he's making something like The Kingdom or Friday Night Lights, there's a reality. I'm a stickler for what I like to talk about, verisimilitude, the quality of being real. And he's always sort of leaned into that as a director. Yeah. And I think with American Primeval, it just oozed authenticity. It was, if the rain that was constantly coming down, if it could flow out of your screen, the authenticity was there. And you guys did such a great job. You felt everything that happened in that show, not just the tomahawk blows or the gunshots. You felt it all, man. It was, what a great, just the what you guys were able to accomplish. There wasn't a moment that didn't feel authentic in that show.
Well, thank you. A lot of people gave it their all. So
yeah,
hair
what a
and
great,
makeup, yeah, amazing.
Was there anything in that show that you didn't anticipate? Not necessarily a difficulty, but something, maybe an unusual detail, or was there something with the period that you weren't expecting, or something that was unique to the costumes? I don't know what that might be. Something that might have come about during research?
Well, you opened with like your love of the Western, and technically, this is not a Western.
No.
But people had thought of it, the people that produce these things and budget for these things, thought they were making a Western. And when you think you're making a Western, you think, we're going to rent the boots. We're going to rent the pants. We're going to rent X, Y, and Z. But the cowboy boot isn't worn yet. So it's a different style of boot. So in the deep dive, I was like, can't wear cowboy boots. So we have to make different shoes.
Is that when you have to go to the production accountant to have a conversation? How do you?
It was horrible. Like, I have to say, like, just talking about money on that show, it was a lot. Because, like, it's true on everything. You always feel like you don't have enough time, you don't have enough money, there's so much pressure. That's just the reality.
The thing is, this is just from an interesting production perspective, and not like in terms of not necessarily talking about money, but when you have a preconceived notion that, okay, we're just going to have cowboy boots, because people don't know, they haven't done the research. And part of what you do is you have to bring that, and production needs to know this.
Right.
And, when you're working with like if you're working with a line producer who's breaking down the budget or whatever, the line producer's not going to know. Right. He doesn't know about all the details, so or she's not going to know about all the details. So these are important things. I love these little insights, because it makes anybody who listens to this interview think, because that could cost a lot of money.
Oh,
like if you,
did.
I can only imagine. But it's something to learn and to get on top of right away. So what you do with your research becomes a vital part of literally the budget of the movie.
Right.
Now, maybe not hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, but it's certainly a huge expense. Yeah. And it depends how authentic you want to get. And of course, everybody wants to be authentic. And the reason you're Emmy nominated or whatever, part of that is because you anticipated these things. So that's a very interesting. So how did you surmount this problem? How did production?
Well, the other thing was, like, we then pointed out all the mud at Fort Bridger. And the fact we were going to shoot in the terrain, in a snowy mountain, like all of that, like when people were like, oh, so that was on stage. And I was like, no. I think we were on stage for 3 days. I was like, no, we were actually climbing a mountain. So just pointing out and just being as rational and breaking it down. And then also just talking about safety and comfort. Right. So
especially in harsh environments outside.
Yeah.
If the ground is wet, somebody falls down. Yeah. Slips.
Yeah. Yeah. So we really showed everybody how much things cost, how it would fit. And in the end, we were like, we will do this for our principals and their stunt doubles. And then we'll have doubles for everybody for the, in case of emergency. But it did add a huge cost to it. And I just need a shout out to my agent, Michael Vasquez, who reminded me that it's my job to break down. Like, I was hired because I have this certain knowledge base to really help you decide. Like, the production decides.
It's not up for you. You're just supposed to. Your job is to. Yeah, I think that's a key component. Is you're not going, I need this because I want it. You're giving the production, and that's another thing that I think a lot of people, especially in the production of motion pictures, they don't necessarily think about, especially people outside the business or young producers that are first starting out. Yeah. You're not their enemy.
Right.
They're the ones that are going to decide, you have to, I'm here to provide to you. Like, I wouldn't have known that you can't just go rent a bunch of cowboy boots, that it would be wrong for the and if you didn't do that, then some yo-yo is going to immediately go on the message boards going, this was very inauthentic, and then someone's like, why didn't you tell me that? And then it falls to, so
so I just make sure everybody has all the information, and then someone else decides, because at the end of the day, I'm like, if you're not going to do any close-ups of people riding horses and you don't see their feet,
Yeah.
fine. It's probably fine. But you are going to see that. I have worked with this director. I do know how this DP shoots. We're going to see their feet,
Yeah.
like that's part of the storytelling. So I'm sure we just spent more money than anyone anticipated, but I think it was worth it.
Yeah, and of course that is not something that doesn't happen on lots of productions. You're always it's just and the production has to figure out where are we gonna allocate our resources.
Yeah.
But I think that it's a feeling too. When you're watching something, it's a collective. There's an all-encompassing. I've always thought that making movies or great television shows, there's an element of alchemy in it. There's Rumpelstiltskin spinning straw into gold.
Yeah.
And it's when everybody's working in tandem together, the A game, there's something magical that occurs. You can't, it's kind of intangible, but you know it when you see it.
Yep.
And I think that American Primeval had that in spades. It was from the first time you laid eyes on it, I'm like, what is this? Like you could see, I had to sit down and watch all of it, and because I was mesmerized by it, and it paid off. Not just because you're getting Emmy nominations, but it really is an extraordinary program. And like any good program, it makes you, meaning me, the viewer, want to take a deep dive into history.
Yeah.
Like, did this really happen?
Yes.
I've never heard this part of American primeval history before. Thank God we have the Smithsonian that'll keep telling these stories. Oh, wait.
Oh.
But if I might editorialize for a minute.
Yeah.
But no, it's an extraordinary thing that you guys did. It's an amazing show. I don't think it's the kind of show you're going to get a season 2, although you could tell a different story.
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever. But things, did things improve? No. So.
Well, it really is extraordinary, and it's great that it's getting the recognition that it's getting from the Television Academy and things like that. But I would ask you, a lot of people, and we always end these interviews on the show by asking, a lot of people always want to know, how do you get into the business this way? There's a lot more avenues. You've got Instagram, you can show your work. What is your advice to people that are coming up? If some young girl or guy or whomever might want to get into this part of the business, what do you think that they should do today?
Well, they should definitely find any sort of local Facebook group that is sharing crew opportunities constantly. In New England, there's a group that I belong to just because someone will do an intro. Hi, I'm so-and-so. I've, just graduated from Bridgewater State, and I am hoping to work in the costume department. And they post a resume, and I'm like, resume, awesome. We're going to need a PA, and being in those groups, I also then see younger filmmakers also being looking for crew. It doesn't pay a lot, but we're going to do a short for, a weekend. And it just helps build experience. I am not, and I think it's because of coming from working class roots, I do not advocate for working for free. I think that in this economy, groceries costing what they do, you should get compensated in some way, and not by just exposure, because exposure doesn't pay your rent. And it's easier to be creative and also be super involved and supportive of the department in any role if you aren't feeling financially and emotionally strapped.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that is so important. If you're worried about where your next meal comes from, it's really hard to come in and give something your all. So those paid opportunities, they may not be the best paying. Like being a PA, you're not going to get rich doing that, but you are going to get rich in experience and connecting with people and learning so much about the different jobs within our department. I learned so much in those first few years as a costume supervisor about we have all these departments. I can hire a crew in Los Angeles just to do fittings and pull. Like all of these jobs exist to make it so that I can come into like American Primeval and have a department under one roof of 75 people to make something epic. And on that show, we had 3 PAs, and I also had a remote PA who just organized our research so that if somebody was looking for a specific boot, that PA already knew, had created a great database that was like men's boot for, you know, and those jobs are all there. And just going out and looking for them. Things you can do when there aren't jobs, though, are like you can learn everything on YouTube. I learned to fix my dryer on YouTube. I also, I'm not
You certainly can. I totally agree with you.
You can also learn how to use Procreate. You can also learn how to use Excel or Google Sheets. PAs do a lot of spreadsheets. They do a lot of digitizing. Like costumes, I use Procreate every single day. Learning all those skills on the side are also wonderful. And especially in Boston, there are all of these free ways that you can experience museums and fashion and history. And just building up that library of not only knowledge, but experience is part of how you get yourself in. And like learn and thrive and always want to be learning. And this is another April Fairy thing. The iPhone came out and Pandora came out while we were working together. And April wanted Pandora like nothing in the world. Like was just like, what is this magic? Teach me. And I just was like, oh my God, because she could listen to music that she hadn't heard. She wasn't carrying from location to location.
Oh, the world that we live in is full of wonder, you know. And there is so much. You know, my first job in the industry, I was the art department PA on Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. And I learned more. I did everything. I worked for the prop department. I worked security. We built all the sets. They were all built on location. So I learned more on that on a daily basis than all of film school and everything combined. And you know, one of the other things, I always showed up early. I always asked everybody. I talked to every department head because we were a low budget movie. So if anybody needed something done and I wasn't working directly for the art department, I would go do whatever, you know, make yourself available, not in an annoying way, and then and also learn how to work with people.
Yes, and that's the other thing. And like what you just said also brings to mind something that we tell our PAs on their first day. Here's the crew list. Look up every single person, learn who they are, and find those connections. Like, and the connection might be, you worked on the Gilmore Girls and I love the Gilmore Girls, you know, like whatever, so that you find yourself in an elevator and you can say, hey, I noticed you worked on the Gilmore Girls. What was that like?
Yeah. And
you just find those personal connections so that you can have conversations and just show people that you're interested and you're paying attention. And every single one of the PAs I've worked with over the years, like my assistant right now had been my PA years and years ago. So every assistant I've had has been a PA at some point.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no better way to work. And I was paid. It was my first job. I wasn't paid a lot, but I was paid. And I think one of the interesting things about film sets is you have every discipline. You've got white collar workers, you've got blue collar workers, you've got, you know, grunts who are picking up big cables. You have people that understand how to light. I mean, it's every aspect of human endeavor is represented on a movie set.
Yep.
And it's also a place where there's excellence. If people aren't good at their jobs, it's the one place in the world where you can actually figure out how much every second costs per day. Every single second has a dollar value associated with it. And if you're not going to make your day, It's all for naught. Well, I want to say this was a tremendous interview. I want to thank you so much.
Thank
You
you.
are absolutely delightful. And
Thanks.
Virginia B. Johnson, I want to thank you very much for being on the Designing Hollywood podcast. What can people find you on social media?
They can. I am on Instagram, v.b.j. That I also am on Threads. That way, I also am a little old school. I'm on LinkedIn, so
I know, me too. I'm like, I used to get off. I can't quit it.
I can't either.
Is there anything you want to tell people about what you have coming up?
I am super excited to be taking like a hard left, and I am designing season 3 of the Walking Dead spinoff, Dead City. So we're set in Manhattan. We have zombies, 15 years into the apocalypse. It's just totally different. But again, grounded in realism and reality.
Sure.
Like none of these soft knit sneakers were invented because everything stopped in 2010.
Right.
So, there's no sheen. There's no, none of that stuff. It's all
That's hilarious.
Yep. So, yeah, totally. It's a totally different kind of thing. But once again, so collaborative, so lucky to be here and working with really amazing people. So
Incredible.
really cool.
Well, Virginia B. Johnson, I want to thank you so much for your time and thank you for being on the Designing Hollywood podcast, and good luck at the Emmys.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. And thanks for everything that you all do for this community. Take care.
That was great. Thank you for that. A special thank you to founder and executive producer Martika Ibarra, co-founder, costume designer, the legendary Marilyn Vance, and of course, John Campea from The John Campea Show. Thank you to all of our viewers for tuning in, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tune in to the audio version wherever you listen to podcasts. I am, of course, your host, Robert Meyer Burnett, and you can find me on Instagram at rmburnett, or find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or on YouTube at PostGeekSingularity. Thanks very much. Like, subscribe, and give us your comments. What would you like to see on the channel? Right down below. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode of Designing Hollywood.